The US dollar is the most powerful currency in the world. Today it plays a central role in global trade, international finance, and the reserves held by central banks. Even in countries far from the United States, the dollar is used every day to settle payments, price commodities, and store national wealth. Over time, the influence of the dollar has grown far beyond the borders of the United States, shaping the way the global economic system operates. One of the most important signs of this dominance is how frequently the dollar is used in international trade. A large share of global transactions is conducted in US dollars, even when American companies are not directly involved. Businesses in different parts of the world often choose to price goods and services in dollars because it is widely accepted and trusted. When companies from two different countries trade with each other, they often rely on the dollar as a common reference currency that both sides can easily use. This situation creates a powerful network effect. Because the dollar is already widely used, more businesses and governments continue to adopt it for trade and financial transactions. Over time, this has made the dollar the primary currency used to move money across borders. Large international contracts for commodities such as oil, metals, and agricultural goods are commonly priced in dollars, reinforcing its role in global markets. Another key factor behind the dollar's global importance is its role as a reserve currency. Central banks around the world hold large amounts of US dollars as part of their foreign exchange reserves. These reserves are used to stabilize national currencies, manage international payments, and respond to financial crises. A significant portion of global currency reserves is held in dollars, making it the most widely held reserve currency in the world. The reason central banks prefer to hold dollars is closely connected to stability and liquidity. The financial markets in the United States are among the largest and most developed in the world. Government bonds issued by the United States are considered highly reliable, and they provide a place where countries can safely store large amounts of capital. Because these markets are deep and active, dollars can be moved quickly and easily when countries need access to funds. As a result, the dollar has become deeply embedded in the structure of the global economy. It is used not only for trade but also for international loans, investments, and financial contracts. Many governments borrow money in dollars, and many international institutions conduct transactions using the same currency. Over decades, this widespread use has reinforced the position of the dollar at the center of the international financial system. However, this dominance did not happen by accident. The dollar did not suddenly become the world's leading currency overnight. Instead, its rise was shaped by a series of historical events and economic decisions that gradually placed it at the center of global finance. To understand why the dollar rules the world today, it is necessary to look back at the moment when the modern international monetary system was first created. The global dominance of the US dollar did not appear suddenly. Its position was largely shaped by the economic and political conditions that emerged after the Second World War. At the end of the war, much of Europe and large parts of Asia were economically devastated. Industrial production had collapsed, infrastructure had been destroyed, and many national economies were struggling to rebuild. In contrast, the United States emerged from the war with its industrial capacity intact and its economy stronger than ever before. During this period, the United States had become the largest and most productive economy in the world. American factories had expanded rapidly during the war, producing enormous quantities of industrial goods, machinery, and technology. At the same time, the United States held a large share of the world's gold reserves. This combination of economic strength and financial stability placed the country in a unique position to shape the future of the global monetary system. In 1944, representatives from dozens of countries gathered at an international conference held in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. The goal of the conference was to design a stable financial system that could support international trade and prevent the economic instability that had contributed to the Great Depression. The result of these negotiations was the creation of a new global monetary framework that would place the US dollar at the center of the international financial system. Under the Bretton Woods system, the value of the US dollar was directly linked to gold. The United States agreed to exchange dollars for gold at a fixed price of $35 per ounce. At the same time, many other countries chose to link the value of their own currencies to the dollar. This arrangement effectively made the dollar the anchor of the global financial system. Because the dollar was convertible into gold, governments and financial institutions around the world trusted its value. As international trade expanded in the decades following the war, the dollar became increasingly important. Countries used it to settle trade payments, stabilize their currencies, and store financial reserves. The system created a stable environment for economic growth, and the dollar gradually became the primary currency used in global finance. However, maintaining this system became more difficult over time. As global trade expanded and the United States continued to spend large amounts of money both domestically and internationally, the number of dollars circulating around the world grew rapidly. Eventually, the amount of dollars held abroad began to exceed the gold reserves that the United States possessed. By the late 1960s and early 1970s, this imbalance created serious pressure on the Bretton Woods system. In 1971, the United States made a historic decision to end the direct convertibility of the dollar into gold. This effectively brought the Bretton Woods system to an end and created uncertainty about the future role of the dollar in the global economy. Many observers believe that the dollar might lose its dominant position once it was no longer backed by gold. Without a direct link to a physical asset, it seemed possible that countries might begin to search for alternative currencies to use in international trade. Yet instead of declining, the influence of the dollar soon found a new foundation through a different and extremely important global market. When the Bretton Woods system collapsed in the early 1970s, the global financial system entered a period of uncertainty. The US dollar was no longer directly tied to gold, and many governments questioned whether it would remain the central currency of international trade. Without the gold standard, the dollar appeared vulnerable. If countries stopped trusting it, the global demand for dollars could decline, weakening its position in the world economy. At this critical moment, a new system began to emerge that would help preserve the global role of the dollar. One of the most important developments involved the international oil market. Oil had already become one of the most valuable and essential resources in the global economy. Modern industries, transportation systems, and national energy supplies all depended heavily on access to oil. Because of its importance, the currency used to buy and sell oil would play a major role in shaping global financial flows. During the 1970s, the United States reached an agreement with Saudi Arabia, one of the world's largest oil producers. Under this arrangement, Saudi Arabia agreed to sell its oil exclusively in US dollars. In exchange, the United States provided security guarantees and strengthened its economic and political relationship with the country. Over time, other major oil-exporting nations adopted the same practice. This arrangement became known as the petrodollar system. Because oil is one of the most widely traded commodities in the world, pricing oil in dollars created a constant global demand for the US currency. Countries that needed to import oil first had to obtain dollars in order to pay for it. This meant that governments and companies around the world began holding large quantities of dollars to ensure they could participate in global energy markets. The impact of this system was enormous. Energy imports are essential for nearly every modern economy. As long as oil continued to be traded in dollars, the demand for the currency remained strong. Countries accumulated dollar reserves not only for trade with the United States but also for transactions with oil-producing nations. This reinforced the position of the dollar at the center of international trade. At the same time, the dollars earned by oil-exporting countries did not remain idle. Many of these revenues were reinvested into the global financial system, particularly into American financial markets. Oil-producing countries purchased US government bonds and invested in international financial institutions that operated largely in dollars. This process helped recycle large amounts of capital back into the global economy, while strengthening the influence of the dollar in financial markets. As the petrodollar system expanded, the role of the dollar extended far beyond the oil trade. International loans, large corporate investments, and many financial contracts began to be denominated in dollars as well. Because so many financial transactions were already conducted in the currency, using dollars became the most convenient option for businesses and governments across the world. By the end of the 20th century, the dollar had secured a powerful position in the international economic system. Even without a direct link to gold, it remained the primary currency used in global trade and finance. Yet the continued dominance of the dollar was not based only on oil markets. A deeper set of financial structures and economic advantages continued to reinforce its role, ensuring that the dollar remained the most influential currency in the modern global economy. Today, the US dollar remains the dominant currency in the global financial system. Even decades after the collapse of the Bretton Woods system and the creation of the petrodollar arrangement, the dollar continues to play a central role in international trade, global investments, and national reserves. Many countries around the world still rely on the dollar as the primary currency for storing wealth, conducting international payments, and stabilizing their own financial systems. One of the main reasons the dollar continues to dominate is the strength and size of the American financial markets. The United States has one of the largest and most liquid financial systems in the world. Government bonds issued by the United States are widely viewed as safe and reliable assets. Because these financial markets are so large and active, investors and governments can move vast amounts of money in and out of dollar assets with relative ease. This liquidity makes the dollar extremely attractive for international finance. Central banks also play a major role in maintaining the global demand for the dollar. Countries hold foreign currency reserves to protect their economies during financial instability and to support international trade. A significant share of these reserves is held in US dollars. By holding dollars, central banks ensure that they can quickly access global markets, stabilize their national currencies, and pay for critical imports such as energy and industrial materials. Another factor supporting the dollar's dominance is the deep integration of the currency into global financial contracts. Many international loans, investment agreements, and corporate transactions are denominated in dollars. This creates a powerful system in which businesses and financial institutions around the world naturally continue using the dollar because it is already widely accepted. The more the dollar is used, the more convenient it becomes for others to adopt it as well. This widespread use also gives the United States significant financial influence. Because so much of the world's financial activity is conducted in dollars, decisions made within the American financial system can affect economies across the globe. When the United States adjusts its monetary policy or interest rates, the effects are often felt far beyond its own borders. In addition, financial sanctions that restrict access to dollar transactions can have serious consequences for countries that rely on the global financial system. At the same time, some nations have begun exploring ways to reduce their dependence on the dollar. Countries such as China and members of economic groups like BRICS have discussed increasing the use of alternative currencies in trade and financial transactions. These efforts reflect a growing interest in creating a more diversified global financial system. Despite these discussions, replacing the dollar remains extremely difficult. The currency benefits from decades of trust, a vast financial infrastructure, and the scale of the American economy. Competing currencies would need to offer similar stability, liquidity, and global acceptance in order to challenge the dollar's position. For now, the US dollar continues to occupy a unique place in the international economic system. Its dominance is the result of historical events, powerful financial institutions, and global networks of trade and investment that developed over many decades. While the future of the global monetary system may continue to evolve, the influence of the dollar remains one of the defining features of the modern world economy.